So, welcome everyone to today's conversation on the freight KPIs you need to track with an idea of making sure you're knowing how to run all the moving parts of your supply chain and making sure product ingredients are getting from point A to point B in a timely manner. So, for this conversation, I have invited on Travis Downs. And Travis works with Owlery, and they help to streamline freight management so that you know where all your ingredients are, where are your products are in translate, and to make sure that you have visibility from everything on invoices to routes and best pricing. So for this conversation, we're really kind of diving into all those juicy details so that you can actually save costs on running your business. I remember even just with T squares, we're buying ingredients from I think 12 different suppliers. Trucks were coming in, we're managing everything through email. It's like, hey, where's this item? When's it going to arrive? And it's like there's so little visibility into that, especially managing it with the rest of the business, that it was just really confusing. And as business scales, that gets even more so. So, Travis, welcome to the webinar today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jordan. And it's great to see everyone from around the world, it looks like. Very cool. I'm Travis. I'm one of the founders of Owlery. We help fast-moving brands and manufacturers streamline and automate every logistics and freight decision. Excited to share a little bit about some of the KPIs that we recommend brands track. Jordan, a lot of what you just described resonates with me. People view freight as a cost center, and it's sometimes a forgotten cost center early on. But in order to really scale and be successful, being able to turn that into almost a competitive advantage can be hugely valuable. So I've got some slides that I'll be using to drive the conversation, but yeah, would love for this to be as much of a conversation as possible.
Of course. So Travis, well, you can go ahead and pull that up. One thing that just came to mind is when I was running T Squares, we were manufacturing in Chicago, but ordering ingredients as far as Seattle, or not Seattle, but out of Washington State. And what was interesting is that the ingredient price was cheaper, but with freight, our overall cost was higher.
Yeah,
And that drove us to actually finding a local supplier of almonds, or a warehouse at least, where it was much, much cheaper. We could just eliminate that freight cost. And so
yeah.
where you're buying ingredients even can have a huge cost, and those prices change every time you order. So it's important to actually track these things, otherwise they will get away from you.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Quick intro on Owlery, just so you know who I am. By way of background, I've spent 8 to 10 years in the logistics freight technology world, starting at Uber Freight back when it was actually just getting started. Um, for the past 3 years, we've been building Owlery, which is the transportation and logistics platform for shippers. We don't sell to your freight brokers or carriers. We just serve brands and manufacturers. And our mission is to make logistics teams happy. Sometimes those are small things, sometimes those are big things. But our customers love us because they get hours back in a week. They eliminate overspend, and we can handle really large volumes, whether that's within one brand or across our entire customer base. Um, we've had the good fortune of working with a lot of CPG and food bev brands, so I've gotten to understand the space pretty well, and yeah, so hopefully a lot of this resonates. First, freight in your supply chain. Jordan, you just gave a great example, getting almonds from Seattle and getting it to Chicago. What is the freight that matters? There's a ton of different kinds. First, it could be those raw materials that you're ordering that are coming in from a supplier to your manufacturer, or maybe you're even storing those somewhere. Um, it could be finished goods that you're transferring out of a co-packer or a co-man into an FC, or maybe you're doing stock transfers between different FCs throughout the country to balance your fulfillment network. Or you might even have B2B retail, wholesale sales orders that are going out to customers. Um, this is true, but 70% of all goods in the US move in a truck at some point, and chances are you have a couple pallets moving at any given point throughout your supply chain, and it can be all over these different use cases. And it quickly gets complex. There's a ton of parties involved. I like to say freight is how the physical world connects. You've got buildings that are producing your almonds and you got someone else that's making bars, that what actually is the connective tissue between that are these trucks that are picking things up and dropping them off. So there's a ton of coordination involved, and everyone kind of has to move in synchrony, and they're all serving you, your brand, to make sure that your products are moving around your supply chain in the order that you need. And freight can very quickly get complex with all these different factors. And as it gets complex, there's often margin leak associated with that. At the beginning of a brand's journey, you're probably just thinking, how do I get raw materials to my manufacturer on time so that the production run can run? And you're not really thinking about how to optimize that or control that. These days, and especially as you grow in scale, you'll really need to make sure that you can control those costs and actually have ways to streamline those operations. They can't grow linearly or worse, exponentially. They should be growing negatively, or they should be inversely coordinated. You should be finding scale as you grow. And it's really important. You can't manage what you don't measure. And so we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about different KPIs that you should be tracking to make sure that there is no freight margin leak, or at least you're eliminating it. We're going to go over a 3-step plan, 3 sets of KPIs. The first is what you need to be looking at to just stop any bleeding that exists. Number 2, there'll be a group of measurements around your operational health in your supply chain. And then number 3 will be some of those strategic optimizations you might want to make. Jordan, the example of moving a raw material supplier is a great one that we'll actually touch on a little bit later as well. And then as a bonus, throw in how we think about the true cost framework and a little bit about Owlery and how we help. So we'll go through all these sections. Would love to answer any questions as we go along. And then at the end, I'll give you one clean slide that you can screenshot, print out, put above your bed at night, whatever you need so that you remember it. Awesome. Step 1, stop the bleeding. The first thing you should know is, what is your freight spend as a % of your revenue? You need to make sure that you have positive unit economics, that you're not spending too much on freight. And you should be able to know this by your customer, by different products, by the markets that you're selling in. What we typically see for food bev brands is that should be in the 3 to 8%. But obviously that's going to vary on a number of different factors. It'll depend on your pricing to your customers. It'll depend on how optimized your supply chain is. But you should be aiming to drive that number down as low as possible. And this is something like even your sales team should be aware of. Everyone should know this, because this is going to affect the profitability of the business and even the pricing that you can offer your consumers. I've worked with brands who, when they were able to lower their freight costs, they actually were able to lower their shelf price $1 or $2 as well. And that can have a meaningful impact for the end consumer. Number 2 is your billing error rate. So freight, the annoying thing about freight is every shipment results in its own invoice. It could be hundreds of dollars, it could be thousands of dollars for those cross-country moves. And there's sometimes extra fees tacked on that get added later. An unfortunate reality of the freight world is that typically 2 to 5% of freight bills have errors on them. You should make sure that yours is not higher than that. Yours should be as close to 0. And the ones that do have errors, you're catching before you overpay. This is just pure margin leak. When an invoice comes in and they're trying to add detention, but the truck wasn't there on time, or they're upcharging for a lumper, or whatever it may be. Keeping an eye on those freight bills can be tedious, but it's a very common way that your margin will actually leak out into freight and logistics. The 2 things we recommend tracking are, how often are you getting bills that have errors on them, and what is the total dollar amount of those errors? And obviously, you want to be driving those both down to 0. The third is your what we call shipment details accuracy. So is the pallet count right? Are the weights accurate? Is the freight class accurate? And this can be pretty nuanced. You will want to think about net weight versus gross weight. How are the pallets being built if you're shipping multiple products at once? Are they on a mixed pallet? Are they all on their own standalone pallet? And the reason why this matters is because the amount you're getting charged to ship freight is a function of these inputs. It's obviously the pickup, the distance, the where it's coming from and going to, but it's also what's being shipped. So if you are quoting too much weight, you're overpaying for your freight. If you're quoting too little freight or too little weight, apologies, there will be a reweigh charge when they realize that, and you'll get hit with a penalty later. You want this accurate upfront so that you don't overpay. You want to eliminate those billing errors that we mentioned previously. And to the extent possible, you should have some sort of automated verification pre-ship. That can get difficult if you've got thousands of SKUs that all have different products that are shipping, and you might need a tool at that point. If it's just a couple of SKUs that you're thinking about, it should be pretty formulaic to calculate this all accurately. These are the three first things that you should be looking at to stop the bleeding when it comes to your freight costs. Number one, how much are you spending relative to revenue? Number two, are the bills that you're getting accurate? And then number three, are the inputs to those pricing, what you're quoting, is that accurate as well?
Awesome.
Number th
Travis, a couple of
Yeah,
questions that came in. So a couple of people are asking, is it 3 to 8% inbound or outbound? Like what's that
outbound.
3% based off of?
Yeah, outbound.
Outbound. Okay.
I don't have the total across. That is an interesting question. It's a little trickier to standardize inbound and outbound. As you can imagine, people allocate raw material costs differently. But yeah, what we typically see on the outbound side is 3 to 8%.
Okay. And then Eli asks, thoughts on freight booking software, like Freight Quote versus using freight for brokers or working directly with carriers?
Yeah, great question. I'll allude to this later on, but I believe it's valuable to have multiple freight providers or options that you're considering. If you become overly reliant on one, you're going to lose pricing power and negotiation power. I recommend at least three different quotes on your most important lanes to ensure that you're getting the best rates. The ways you can get those quotes, freightquote.com is a great example, powered by CH Robinson. They're going to have all your LTL carrier quotes. You could also just as easily sign up with Echo or another national broker who will have the same LTL carriers with slightly different pricing for you to look at. The way this works behind the scenes is they literally have levers that they pull on individual accounts. So maybe brand A, they realize, ooh, I can increase my own freight margin a little bit, but brand B, I have to come down. You want to drive that margin down. It's a commoditized offering that's going to that you don't want to be ripped off on. So I definitely recommend at least three different options, and there are a lot of tools, ours included, that will make that super easy for you. Um, yeah, that's kind of that's our how we think about it.
Okay, cool. I mean, keep going. Those are all the questions for now.
Awesome, cool. Uh, Step two, phase two, your kind of audit, your operational health audit. So we've figured out, okay, we might be spending more on freight than we should be, or we have shocking amount of billing errors, or we're just making up what we're shipping. So we have no idea if we're even getting the right rates. Those are the things you should do day one right away. Day two, start to think about uh, these three metrics. The first is your on-time performance, your on-time pickup, and your on-time drop-off. This should really be 95 to 100%. It's very rare. Like don't settle. Don't let someone tell you that's impossible. It is possible. Trucks move every day throughout the US, pick up on time, deliver on time. You need this because your supply chain needs to be running smoothly. A late pickup can affect a production run, which can affect inventory balances, which can affect your ability to fulfill a sales order down the road. Your target is 95 to 100%. Tell your carriers that, hold them accountable to that. Show them the KPIs you're measuring. You should be able to slice and dice this by the lanes, the trucks you're using, making sure that there's consistent performance. And if there are root causes of delays, it could be that you have a raw material supplier, like that's indicative of potentially a bigger supply chain issue. If it's always a late pickup at your almond supplier, there's probably something going on with that almond supplier, and maybe it means you need to reevaluate your reliance on them. So on-time performance obviously also matters a lot for your retail customers. You don't want to get hit with late fees or anything like that. Cool. Number two, documentation availability. Every freight shipment has a couple different documents that are pretty important to that are associated with them. And what's actually happening is the driver shows up to a warehouse, they get a physical piece of paper with what's on the truck. It's signed by that warehouse, it's signed by the driver that they received it. They take it to where it's going. They hand that same physical paper to the receiver who reviews it all, reviews all the information, signs it. That becomes your proof of delivery. There's other documents as well. You can imagine temperature logs for temp controlled shipments and maybe customs docs if things are crossing the border. You should have easy access to all of these documents. It is very reasonable to require that in order for you to pay a carrier, they submit all the proofs of deliveries for the work that they did and all the documents with it. You should have all those documents available, stored somewhere. Worst case scenario, it's just in your email and you can find it. Best case scenario, it's in some structured file system. But the reasons you want that is because God forbid there's a recall and you need to audit what went where when. Maybe you need to dispute with a customer what actually was delivered versus what they're now complaining about later. And then obviously the regulatory impacts as well. Simple things, make sure you have those documents on hand. Aim for 100% within 24 hours of delivery. And then number three, what are your benchmark rates? Where are you falling in market benchmark? From like a market benchmark perspective. Jordan and I were chatting about this just before the webinar started, and freight rates move seasonality and year over year, depending on a lot of macroeconomic conditions, even in different geographies. And produce season will make rates really expensive out of the Southeast, for instance. So you need to ensure that you're always paying market rates. Like I said on the last slide, or Eli, to your question, you should always be getting at least 3 quotes on your key lanes, and keeping an eye on where carrier pricing is trending over time. There's a lot of market research out there that you can look at. There are tools that provide benchmark data for you to analyze. Obviously, you want to be at the benchmark or ideally less. You do not want to be paying more than the benchmark.
Awesome.
These,
Looks good.
yeah, cool. Yeah, these are the 3 things. After you tackle those first 3, start thinking about these 3 in a little bit more medium-term planning. Awesome. And then number 3 of each one's 3 within 3 sections. The final section is sort of your long-term strategic optimization. What are those decisions that you can make that'll have step change improvements in your unit economics across your business? Number 1, understand and be able to slice how you're spending freight on any unit that matters, whether that's per mile, per load, per pallet, per case, per unit. They're all going to move slightly differently. You can imagine the amount you're spending on each load and each shipment is going up over time, but that could just be because the shipments are getting longer and your per mile rate is actually flat. Or maybe per mile rate went up as well because it's shorter hauls and they charge more for that, but you're more efficiently putting your product on the truck. So your per case, meaning there are more pallets that you're filling the truck with, or you're packing the pallet better, your actual per case or per unit economics looks different. We often see customers are tracking this in 6 different ways, looking at it side by side, understanding what's correlating to different trends. Identify which lanes, which shipments are causing outliers, or are these outliers, so that you can address them. Being able to easily slice and dice by the core unit economics that you think about is super important for long-term optimization.
Travis, with those different ways of analyzing it, have you found that there's like one or two that are most key for small businesses? Because, right, I know like all of them are pretty important in certain situations,
Yeah.
but is there like one or two, like, all right, start here, then as you get more sophisticated, you can add these other ones?
Yeah, it would be however you measure your unit economics. So we have a meat customer. They think about things on a per pound basis. That's what they want to see. We have a beverage company that they think about things on per cases, and that's what they want to see. Other people think about it per units. If you were to pick just one, pick your unit economic, or how you measure unit economics. Um, the reason you then want to, though, as you get more sophisticated, layer on perhaps a distance, uh, standardizing it for distance or weight or shipment, is because perhaps your unit economics are going up, but that's just because you're delivering to further away customers. That could be totally reasonable. It actually means something else. You should think about, should you move where you're shipping from? So yeah, Jordan, I think that's a great call out actually. Like if you were to just start with one, pick the one that is how you think about unit economics, and then as you get deeper and deeper, that'll tell you more about your overall supply chain network health.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. And then that way it's most useful because it's
Yeah.
the way you're already thinking about it.
Yep. Cool. Um, Second thing to be thinking about is, delivery versus picked up. So Jordan, your almonds example, I'm going to pick on it again. Perhaps it got close enough that like you should have just driven your car over. Obviously not actually, but
We
you
did
need to be
actually.
thinking, so you would save a ton of money from that.
Yeah.
You have to think about your total landed costs, not just the rates. So that's going to be your freight rate. That's going to be transit times. That's going to be how much control you have over the shipment and the order arriving on time. How much visibility matters? Are you delivering to a customer who really needs to see things to get to that total cost that you think about? Um, Maybe finished goods, you want to coordinate the pickups yourself. Maybe raw materials, it's different. Maybe stock transfers, it's different. It's going to be different for your business and your suppliers and your manufacturers. Uh, think about it across all different parts of your supply chain. And remember to be thinking about the total landed cost rather than just a single uh, measurement along the way. Cool. And then the last one is, how what is your customer and partners satisfaction? Customers, retail, distribution, wholesale partners, maybe also your suppliers or your co-packers, the people you rely on to keep your supply chain running smoothly. CSAT doesn't just matter in consumer, it also matters in these B2B transactions. Are you properly notifying the right parties of what's arriving and what's leaving? And do people have real-time tracking? Like tracking links are really nice, surprisingly easy. People love getting that. Customers love getting that. No one's actually looking at where it is, but I have an Amazon package that's arriving at my home later today. I like checking that from time to time. The Kroger buyer will like that too for your products. So are there little things? How is freight and your logistics in your supply chain affecting your customer LTV? Uh, that's kind of the final ultimate thing you should be optimizing for.
And then kind of with it, I'm kind of curious how much kind of communication are you seeing from the recipients of like those partners and how you think about like measuring that in terms of like sending a survey to people to figure out their satisfactions, just looking at like the order rate or complaint rate, kind of how are you thinking about tracking that success?
Yeah, great question. This one's a little tougher to track because the buyer might not be the ultimate. There's going to be a lot of different stakeholders. So number one, definitely the complete rate. If you are getting emails asking, "Hey, when is this order going to arrive?" Uh, you have not proactively notified them. You should be driving that down to zero. Any complaints or outreach about that. But then number two, like this is just going to come up in your conversations. If you're doing really well, you're proactively communicating, people are going to be like, I love that you tell me exactly what's shipping, when it's coming, what truck it's going to be on. Uh, it's these intangible things that are really going to drive customer stickiness and help you stand out.
I love that. Okay. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Awesome. Now, we went over three sets of KPIs, but the true cost is often larger than what you think. I call this the soft cost multiplier. So you've got your direct freight costs, that's the rates, the fuel, accessorials, any penalties um, that hopefully are not charged, but could be if you're not optimizing those KPIs. But the real drain comes after the fact. There's going to be admin ops time trying to figure out where is a truck if something's running late. Who do you need to notify? How do you coordinate the new production run? The inventory impact that we talked about earlier. Maybe a production run delays your inventory, which delays your ability to fulfill, or you're not well optimized across your network. Worst case scenario, you've got to like frantically pay an arm and a leg to get something arrived on time, and that's going to directly impact your bottom line. And then obviously all those customer and partner relationships. Um, kind of went over this earlier. There's a ton of parties involved in a supply chain that are all working for you on your behalf. We like to say no one ships alone. You're working with and relying on a bunch of different partners to get goods moving smoothly. And there's a ton of problems that can happen behind the scenes. The way we roughly tell, the way we think about it, and we see other brands thinking about it, is they think about the true costs of freight inefficiency. Is you take those direct freight costs, maybe you're overpaying by 3% and there's 2% billing errors or what it may be. Whatever those dollars amount are, the soft dollar impact is usually 3 to 5x that in terms of time, customer relationships, downstream supply chain impacts. And then I also recommend thinking about the opportunity cost of that time. The time and resources that you spend fixing freight issues could have been spent finding new customers, launching new marketing channels, growing revenue and market share, doing other more high impact, high leverage things. So if you look at your freight spend, drive it down, obviously. But then if there are issues, those issues are going to be larger than the hard dollars seem, and that's really what you need to keep in mind.
That makes a ton of sense, Travis. And just kind of brings to mind a lot of the issues that I've dealt with is when I book freight, but I don't get notifications of like when it's actually delayed. And
Yeah,
it's usually that like afterthought, like, huh, this probably should have been there by now. And I have to like go find the tracking number, go
yeah.
to like the carrier site, look it up and like decipher what it means. And so, I mean, I guessing like Owlery probably does this, but like, how do you recommend thinking about like, keeping track of the shipments in progress so you can flag issues like immediately when they come up?
Yeah, I meet a lot of brands who are not yet using Owlery who have a freight tracker, Google
Okay.
Sheets, spreadsheet. Think about your POs, your uh, got all the formulas to calculate the different freight KPIs that I alluded to earlier. Um, Challenges, someone's got to update that. You got to figure out how to keep that updated over time. But there needs to be some, and then usually they have some logic in there. It says, hey, this is supposed to deliver tomorrow. Like maybe the cell turns red or yellow if there's hasn't been updated, right? Um, but yeah, the key to your point, Jordan, is shifting from reactive operations to proactive operations. How do you have that data? How do you have an easy to use dashboard? How's that pushed to you? Are there ways to push that to you? The unfortunate reality is it's very difficult, or it's a manual work. It's one of the things we love to help with is take away those routine operations so that you can focus only on what matters. Um, but yeah, I mean, it can be difficult, especially as your business grows and you have more orders moving around your supply chain. It can be hard to keep track of them all.
Travis, I'm kind of curious, like when you're seeing, I know it kind of varies, but like for some of the maybe like mid-sized brands that you're working with, do you have a sense of like how many like how many trucks are moving on behalf of that brand at any one time? I mean, I know it's like like is it like 10 or 50 or 100? I know it kind
Yeah,
of varies like on scale, but kind of what does
yeah,
that process look like?
yeah, for sure. It varies. And the way we often think about it is on like a monthly basis or a weekly basis. We see customers who have 20 truckloads or less than truckloads, 20 orders moving a month. Sometimes that's less, sometimes it's a little bit more. Um, we see ones that have, 800 orders moving a month. Obviously, those problems are going to grow exponentially as that order volume grows. Uh, the type of by the time you probably are going to outgrow a freight tracker spreadsheet is when you're doing, you know, more than a couple orders a week. That's when, and again, orders across all part of your supply chain, raw material inbound, those finished goods transfers, the stock transfers, the retail sales orders, whatever it may be. When it starts to be more than a couple a week, uh, then you're going to have a couple things going on at time. Chances are that person's also doing other jobs as well for you, and it'll very quickly balloon from there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think because even with T squares, we're doing under $1 million at kind of the end there like a year, but yeah, we had multiple freight shipments that we were booking and sending to customers and inbound and raw materials. And I think quite frankly, like we just weren't tracking it. Like
Yeah.
we didn't have a spreadsheet. It was just kind of a feeling of like, hey, did this arrive yet or not?
Yeah, definitely a spreadsheet can be simple enough and can last you a pretty long time. Um, and if you're thinking about designing your spreadsheet, you're going to want the order number in one column, the category, is it raw materials? Is it a sales order? What is the pallet, the weight, the freight cost, the carrier, and then hopefully a link. Hopefully you've got a link to that carrier's tracking or someplace that you can easily check it. And then
Yeah,
all of that, just people add things like, is it approved for billing? All these like payment statuses at the end as well. But yeah, uh,
cool.
definitely start with the freight tracker.
Awesome. I love that. Cool.
Cool. But yeah, we can help with that. That's why we exist. Number one, we can help brands and manufacturers streamline and automate operations. So get rid of those routine tasks. Everything we just talked about. Make sure that your team can scale. Number two, we have all these KPIs instrumented already. We've got integrations to freightquote.com to pick on them. Everyone I've mentioned, we have integrations that'll pull real-time data for you. We are we can get those set up for you in like 30 minutes, and the data will start to flow over. And then obviously the long-term ongoing strategic optimization. We can help you review your freight processes, identify are there other carriers or providers you should be working with, and how should you be thinking about strategic planning, kind of long term.
And then Travis, when do you think is, I know we are just kind of talking about like spreadsheets, like when do you think is a good time for a brand to transition to Owlery or to look at it for their business?
Yeah, you should have an IMS or something first, like whether that's a SIN 7 or some type of system. That should be your first and foremost thing. Obviously, you need inventory tracking, and that's going to help from an accounting perspective, making sure that you're able to fulfill your orders, traceability, all of that. That's not going to help your operations team, though. Those systems are not built for what's going on between the facilities, as I like to say. So it should be after you have some sort of IMS or ERP or OMS type system. Pick your favorite three letters there. Uh, and then what we usually see is customers come to us when they're kind of at that order volume we mentioned earlier, and they know an inflection is coming, has come, or is right around the corner. That inflection could be, product launches. They're scaling the SKUs and the inventories, and with that comes new manufacturers and new FCs and new retail distributions partners. It could be just growth. You're hitting some inflection point in growth, and your current spreadsheet is just not going to scale. It's going to break for you. It could be preparation for all of that. It could be just shifting your co-man or co-packer. Um, yeah, well, but that's roughly what we see. We see three things. One, you already have an IMS ERP, three-letter acronym. Number two, you've got some consistent order volume, and number three, there's an inflection point in change, um, where it's time to start getting your processes automated, accurate, and get freight under control.
Awesome. I love that. It just had me thinking, I'd love to kind of get a sense. I know we have a mix of like brands and some providers who support brands, but would be curious in terms of like how people are managing their freight currently. And so if you're a brand yourself, or if you work with brands and help them with supply chain or like have an idea of what they're doing, we'll love for you to just like jump and answer the poll that popped up real quick to see how you're currently managing freight. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
leave that open for another second. Okay, cool. So looking at it, seems that 40%, a couple of people are email, spreadsheets, some with nothing, and no one's using software. And I think a lot of the software solutions are probably relatively new.
Yeah.
Um, so it's good to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Historically, this type of software is really available to like, Pepsi, these Fortune 500 companies have giant Oracle deployments because there's so much coordination amongst the different supply chain partners. It can be hard to, it has historically been hard to build software. Uh, we spend a lot of time thinking about how to make this approachable to the growing brands that matter for the future.
Awesome, that makes sense. Eli said Freight Quote has made our life a lot easier, so that's good to hear.
Good, good. Yeah, that one nice portal there is great. Um, Consider checking out another provider from time to time just to make sure that your margin, that there's no hidden margin in what free quote's giving you.
Cool. Awesome, Travis.
Awesome. I'll
Anything
leave you.
else?
I'll leave you with this. If you want to screenshot this, this is everything we spoke about. We can also send this out afterwards. It's a text-heavy slide, but this is what you can print, put on your fridge, above your bed, whatever you need.
Awesome. And then maybe to wrap up around this, I know some teams have someone who's like maybe in charge of all operations. Sometimes it's just like the founder doing everything.
Yeah.
Um, where do you think brands should really start in analyzing their freight? Is it that first area like stop the bleeding?
Yes, definitely stop the bleeding. If you have limited resources, start looking at this right away. Um, yeah, number one, and then that's going to tell you where to drill in further, and maybe you need to start looking at it per case or per customer or whatever it may be. But number one is absolutely start here. Stop the bleeding.
Yeah, and the thing I always recommend as well is a lot of times founders will look at this or teams will look at this at the beginning when they're just getting started. And then maybe once a quarter, usually it's like once a year, they're like, oh yeah, I should check in on how like freight rates are doing. But then it requires a lot of like manual work. And they realize like, oh, I thought that freight was 3% of revenue. It turns out it's 8.
Yeah,
And it's like we're not actually profitable on a unit basis just because of freight or something like we lost all
right.
this margin. And so, right, like these problems scale if it's as a percentage, then the more you sell, the higher dollar value that's going to cost you.
Yep,
Very cool.
exactly.
Awesome. So I think we're at the end here. Lynn said, should my freight be 3 to 8% of my gross revenue or net revenue, kind of after cost of goods?
Oh, great question. Uh, Lynn, let me follow up and see how that varies across our customers. I don't know. It's going to be obviously different, and it obviously depends on the difference between gross and net revenue. So I will see with the just as a sense for where that data came from. We look at all the brands on our platform. We're connected. We connect those orders that come in for them so that we can automate all the logistics operations. So we see the revenue associated with that, we see the freight costs associated with that, and we aggregate that across the board. Let me see if I can follow up with a more specific breakdown for you.
Cool. Definitely appreciate that. And I think what's probably more important is that you're tracking it for
Yes,
your brand specifically, whether you do it gross or net, whatever makes sense, so that you know where you are currently, and then you can use and set your own benchmarks to know if it's growing or if it's decreasing.
that's a great point, Jordan.
Cool. Awesome. So at this point, we have a couple minutes left. Any other questions that you have that we can answer while we have Travis on here? Um, Also open, like if you want to jump on audio or on video to ask more complicated question, you can just type question in the chat and I'll invite you up, or you can type it into the chat box. While you're thinking about those questions, so definitely encourage you to do that. Travis, you and I were talking just in terms of like how freight rates are changing and you're just looking at some data before you hit record, would love for you to share just quickly what you saw in terms of like freight rates.
Yeah. Uh, rates, there, freight rates are tracked in two ways. There's spot rates, which are what is the kind of real-time market rate, and then contract rates, what are you able to lock in for an extended basis. As you grow and get larger, you get more leverage and you're able to run RFPs, lock in contract rates that'll um, allow you to obviously lock in savings. And the ratio of spot to contract in the market will move over time as the market shifts. What we're seeing right now is more customers are moving to contracted rate, trying to contract more freight. What that generally means is spot rates are rising, freight costs are rising, and they're trying to lock in costs now. Now the market can flip from time to time. It flips 6 months, it flips seasonally, but in general, freight rates are rising. So you'll probably see that as well. On a very long-term macro perspective, freight rates have been rising over time, but there is a ton of seasonality in it, and it'll ebb and flow. But yeah, rates are rising. We're seeing more brands move to contracted freight.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Eli asked, do you know of any spreadsheet templates that are a good starting point for tracking KPIs before investing in software?
Hmm, great question, Eli. Uh,
I was actually thinking we should build one, Travis,
yeah, I
just
was
for
thinking that
like
too as we were talking
those
about
core
it.
things.
Yeah,
All right,
maybe
Eli,
maybe
we'll
we'll
work
do
on
that.
building one out and then send it over to you. All right, cool. Other questions that you have? All right. So if anyone does have any follow-up questions, Travis, can you put your email in the chat and then people can
Yeah,
follow up directly?
for sure.
And then Eli also asked, does contracting ever make sense for small LTL? Is it really just for FTL?
Yeah, small tail is going to be hard. And that's going to be one of the advantages that you have going through a broker like CH Robinson, who's the one that powers Freight Quote, is they're actually effectively buying LTL rates and volume across all their customer base. So until you have, some amount of density and frequency, and density meaning on a lane between two locations, and frequency meaning consistent weekly volume, even if that's just one a week, it's going to be hard. Uh, to get competitive pricing there relative to what these larger players will get. But Freight Quote, powered by CH Robinson, is bulk buying these LTL volume rates for you. Um, there are other providers as well. That's what I've alluded to earlier. From time to time, make sure you check out other larger freight brokers who have the same thing, because they might be buying their LTL differently or have different margin settings. Um, yeah, I would say the majority of the brands we see are getting LTL rates through brokers where there are multiple platforms. Uh, and yeah, it's once you start to get pretty consistent volume that you'll contract directly with XPO, Estes, Old Dominion, whoever it may be. We're happy to help when that time comes as well. But yeah,
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Travis, thanks so much for being on. Just as a way to close out as well, Travis and that Allery team are offering a 60-day free trial to get started with the software so that you can try it out for your business to make sure, see if it makes sense and how much it can save you. Because I think that's a lot of things. One thing I'm finding from founders now is they're looking for ways to either drive revenue and decrease costs. And this is a really great way to get visibility on what your freight costs actually are, first off, and then take very active ways to decrease those costs so that it's actually saving your business money. You can inch better towards a higher product margin. So definitely take advantage of that. You can reach out to Travis directly or reach out through me as well, and I can connect you with him and the team to do that.
yeah. And even if not now, in the future, let us know when.
Perfect. Travis, thanks so much for being on again. Thanks so much, everyone, for all the great questions, and have a great rest of your week.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Reach out with any questions. And Jordan, thanks so much for hosting this. I really appreciate it.